Hello again. It's me, the guy who won't stop talking about math. Today, I will be talking about derivatives and integrals. Primarily, I will touch on one or two other subjects as well. Some quick notes. First of all, I have, since starting this series, I've put a limiter on my mic, but looking at the volume contrast last episode, I have decided to increase, or rather decrease, the threshold for my limiter, so I should hopefully never be that loud again. Anyway, I think I will be trying to do Bethany again, and hopefully I won't die. Now let's talk about some math. So I said last time that I don't want to stay on technical subjects for too long. That was a poor way of wording it. I do want to stay on technical subjects. I love technical subjects. I'm a technically minded person. What I more meant was that I don't mean to focus so much on numerics. I would much rather focus on concepts than numbers, you know? Well, this isn't great. And I do look at the YouTube analytics. Maybe I should focus on it less. But I do pay attention, and I saw that, talking about math specifically is not very interesting to people. And I don't mean to cater too much to what other people want or hate, but it does. I would rather have an audience that appreciates what I'm talking about, you know? Was 2 bombs a waste there? Perhaps. We'll see. So today is meant to be the continuation and finale, you could say, of discussing high school calculus. Why there? You jerk. And before we talk about derivatives or integrals, I would like to introduce a very important concept in math, and that is countable versus uncountable infinity. This doesn't have too much to do with derivatives, but will be important for integrals. And integrals and derivatives together are useful for almost all applications. Ooh. Yeah, I need that damage here. So, you may be aware of some odd properties of infinity already. Again, I don't mean to assume too much about anyone who might be watching this. So, please forgive me if I'm coming at this from too shallow of an angle for you. Pique your interests. But, then again, I change topics every day, so, maybe come back tomorrow and I'll have something more interesting. But countable versus uncountable infinity, we're talking about infinity in general. Infinity has this, has some properties like, 2 times infinity is still equal to infinity. And 3 times infinity is infinity still, and even any number that you add to infinity still keeps it at infinity. Although they don't mention this in high school calculus, it is also true that negative infinity and positive infinity aren't really different. I mean, they sort of are, and yet they kind of aren't. In a lot of mathematical applications, the two are more or less the same thing. So, arguably, even multiplying infinity by -1 doesn't change it. But some things do change infinity. Namely, uncountable infinity, which is a larger infinity than countable infinity, like definitively so, can be interpreted to be 2 to the infinite power. That produces a veritably larger infinity, which kind of racks the brain a bit. Well, let's talk about how this is derived. Get it? It's a joke about derivatives. Huh. I will take Yum Heart. That is a great item for me to have. And, like the good child that I am, I will donate all of my earnings to charity. And get +1 luck. Probably should have saved some for the judgment card I have. Anyway, consider the following thought experiment. You... maybe not so much a thought experiment, but consider the following example. This is typically... Ow. This is typically done in, binary is a good representation, but you can do this in any decimal system. What we want is to write down numbers that are between 0 and 1. Don't you dare. Okay. We want to write down numbers between 0 and 1. And we want to consider... Uh-oh. Okay. Trying to write down every possible number between 0 and 1. So, it starts like this. The order we do this in doesn't particularly matter, but follow along with my suggestion here. We'll start by saying 0.1 is the first number that we'll count, and then the second number we will count that's between 0 and 1 is 0.01. And then the third is 0.001, and so on and so forth. And as you might imagine, there's a problem here. How are we ever going to reach 0.2? And the answer is, we don't. In order to reach 0.2, at least through this method of trying to count all of the numbers between 0 and 1, we can't reach 0.2 because we need to count an infinite number of numbers first. An infinite number of zeros followed by a 1 needs to be counted before we reach 0.2. And that's a problem. That's a big no-no. We do not allow that. Why did I just not bomb into here? Whatever. I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't. I was thinking about math. Sorry. Thank you for the bombs. Can you give me something useful? No, you cannot. I'm sorry, but it had to be this way. Now, kindly ignore the fact that this example isn't perfect. There are better ways to construct this that avoid some of the problems here. But just for the sake of coming up with a quick example that's easy to demonstrate what's going on, this is what we're working with. And I should just use that. What we essentially are showing or suggesting by this example is that it doesn't actually matter how you try to count all infinite numbers between 0 and 1. You simply can't. It's not possible to without there being an infinite number of elements between two other elements, which again is a big no-no. That means that we can't truly count them. And this property is a little bit better demonstrated in binary, but I was hesitant to talk about binary first since not everyone is going to be as comfortable thinking through binary. But if I start writing down n numbers between 0 and 1, and each of these numbers has n digits, then we're going to run into a problem. We're going to run out of space very quickly. Actually, not space. We're going to run out of usable slots very quickly of numbers to try and represent all possible numbers. Because, again, we have n numbers, and they're representing 2 to the n possibilities, at least in binary. So no matter how many numbers we try to count with... Well, that was lucky. No matter how many numbers we try to count with, there will always be an exponentially greater number of possible numbers that we need to represent, which simply isn't feasible. Yikes. Ow. Now, the ultimate idea from this being that there are at least 2 infinities. Of course, there are actually many more. But we have countable infinity, that is a set that is infinitely large, but whose elements can be given some sort of order to them. Not just order, excuse me. Some sort of way of counting them. Because, of course, the real number line can be ordered, but it can't be counted. Integers can be counted, but not all real numbers. A more mathematical way of expressing the same idea would be to say that any set of infinite elements is only countably infinite if you can form a bijection between that set and the natural numbers. Very fancy, I know. Get away from me. You ruined my thing. Wish I had a key. Whoa. I'm gonna start making Halo noises, Halo Covenant noises soon. Arbiter noises. Okay, so we have countable infinity and uncountable infinity, 2 distinct infinities. one being significantly larger than the other, such that you can't simply say that, if you multiply countable infinity by a number, then you get uncountable infinity. No, it's much, much larger than that. Yeah. Anyway, what does it matter? Why am I talking about this? This is ultimately for the discussion about integrals. And I have a graphic to share. So if you've ever taken... If you've ever taken high school calculus, or any calculus for that matter, well, bam, then you've likely seen these symbols. On the left, we have capital sigma. And on the right, actually, I'm going to go into the arcade. We have the integral sign. Ooh, curse you. I will accept. This is going to be quite the self-sustaining loop here. Well, maybe it won't be that sustaining, especially if that keeps happening. Okay. This may be foolish. I'm gonna keep using this. And now I'll blow it up. Okay, so... I have forgotten about the graphic again. I'm sorry. So on the left we have capital sigma, which effectively just, it's capital S because it represents sum. And ironically, the integral is a squiggly S, and that's not a joke. It's actually a squiggly S, and it represents a sum. Now, typically, these have some sort of bounds on them. So on the left, you might see capital sigma from I equals 1 to 10, which effectively means we are counting over the set of these numbers, these integers, 1 through 10. Whereas on the right, since the real number line is uncountably infinite, we are integrating from 1 to 10 continuously. Now, this brings up the major distinction in that the purpose of an integral is to integrate to sum over an uncountably infinite set. That is the distinction between that and capital sigma, summation notation. Okay. Now I'm going to take a little bit of a pause from integrals and just talk about integrals and derivatives in general for a minute now. So, I'm probably going to title this episode something like What They Don't Teach You in High School Calculus, which is still very much true, that some of the things I'm talking about are not things taught in high school calculus. Oh, phooey. Oh. Alright. But here's something that really, genuinely is not taught in high school calculus that I really wish it were. And that's the fact that all those formulas and properties you learn for derivatives and integrals are shortcuts. You aren't actually doing derivatives or integrals by hand. That's actually pretty difficult. What you're doing in high school calculus classes is you are memorizing properties that mathematicians discovered centuries ago that make for nice easy shortcuts or nice, simple to understand properties. For example, the fact that if you integrate or derivate a polynomial, I will take him. Thank you very much. Okay, well, I have bombs again, I guess. It's actually not that bad of an item. Oh boy. Range up, shot speed down, range... I knew that. Why did I take that? Well, now it won't matter. How low is my range? That's still fine. Anyway, if you work with a polynomial, you know, 2x squared plus 3, something like that. That's a polynomial. And you take its derivative, of course, the power goes down, so you get 4x and the constant goes away. Pretty straightforward. But you haven't actually done that derivative, not yourself. These were mathematicians hundreds of years ago that discovered that formula where if you do take the derivative of a polynomial, it has that nice, neat form. And that's actually the majority of calculus altogether. Not just derivatives, but integrals as well. You're just learning properties that other people discovered. Oh. And you're just repeating them. That's all it really is. Now, integrals, they are typically introduced using Riemann sums, which is to say, you know, if you're going to sum over a set of elements, then you can think of it, you can approximate an integral by looking at a function and dividing it up into discrete chunks in the domain. That's better. And I take it back. That really isn't better. Don't take my money. You divide up the function over chunks in the domain, and then you look at just a few function values, and then you compute. And that's all a Riemann sum is. You just add everything together and you're done. Now, there are actually some problems with Riemann sums, and I will not be getting into that here. That goes well beyond the discussion today, where I'm informally talking about these things. But the gist of an integral is that you are summing over the entire, or over a range of the function over some sort of uncountable infinity. And there are a few other ways to interpret this, such as integrals being the area under the curve, which is certainly true. Or also, integrals are effectively, yikes. I mean, I already lost it. I don't know why, whatever. I'll just blow you up. I'm sorry. It's just better that way. Another interpretation of an integral is that it is the total or cumulative action of a function. So if a function applies force over time, or at least that's what it represents, then integrating over time tells you exactly how much force it applied in total, at least over the total time that you're integrating over. Okay, bit tense there. Can I get... Yeah, the jumper cables. Very nice. That's well worth it. And I'll do that just so I get the extra wisps. Never mind. Well, it served its purpose. Valiantly. Finally, some soul hearts. Maybe this is a bit controversial, but I think this is the right thing to do. Panic power. That's great. Unironically. Come on, Mom. I want to see. Please let me see. Thank you. Now, you're probably already familiar with this. Oh, she stepped on the battery, baby. No! Well, that's unfortunate. You're probably already familiar with this, but derivatives and integrals are opposites of each other. The integral being referred to as the antiderivative, even. This time it was intentional. I know that might be hard to believe. But it's alright if I get hit now, because I'll still... I'm unlikely to receive the Angel Room or Devil Deal. I could try that chest again. My wisp! There we go. Oh, Mom didn't step on the battery bomb. It just activates like that, right. Oh well. I'll just continue to say that Mom stepped on it. Oh, shucks. Well, I'll just move on through. And screw you, room. Screw you, game. There we go. So just like a derivative of a function is a property that almost all functions have, unless they're fractals, integrals are similar, except actually more functions have integrals than derivatives, but generally functions have both. They are related families of functions, if you will. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is to introduce the idea of differential equations. Now, that is a subject that people are real scared of, in my experience. It's a subject that a lot of engineers have to take, and it can be unintuitive and difficult, but let me try to explain it as intuitively as possible. If only these guys would die. Thank you. So, in the field of differential equations, everything that you know about math is sort of thrown out. Because when you think of math, you typically think of functions, and you have a function, you plug in the x variable, and then you get out the y variable, and then maybe you do some derivatives or integrals or something. But that is not at all how differential equations works. In differential equations, rather than being given a function directly, you're only told some properties of the function. And instead, you need to use those properties to figure out what the function actually looks like. Now, there are a variety of ways to do this, and ultimately, most of them don't matter. Why don't most of them matter? Well, because of software. Because we have software that is very good at figuring out what these functions look like based on their properties, and ultimately, for most people, not all, you don't need to know the methods to solve these by hand anymore. Nor will you ever need to in your career unless you are studying mathematics or something similar. Where is the boss? Thank you for taking a hit for me, and then I took one for you, so it's okay, we're even. I shouldn't have gotten hit by that last one. Where is the boss? Immediately gone. This is so sad. So, in differential equations, what do I mean by describing a function by its properties? Well, for example, you might be told how the derivative of a function relates to the values of the function. Very, very indirect way of describing a function, but that's pretty common in differential equations. For example, if I ask you to provide me with a function whose derivative... Actually, here's a... This guy again? I mean, I guess I will. This is actually great for me. If I ask you to provide me a function where the second derivative of that function is equal to the negative values of the function originally, what function am I talking about? Well, if you are familiar with calculus, you might recall that if you take the derivative of sine or cosine, then it flips. You go from sine to cosine to negative sine to negative cosine, and back around. Well, thank you for your service. So, the solution would be some combination of a sine and a cosine. That would be the function with the properties listed. But what do I mean by a function with these properties? I mean that there is no specific answer. Not unless I provide you with more details about what I'm looking for. Wait, there we go. I almost forgot that part. I'm trying to intentionally take damage. And I got it anyway. Gotta be kidding me. I hate the Dead Sea Scrolls. In game, not in real life. In real life, they're pretty interesting. I got the Yum Heart effect? What are the odds? Someone can probably tell me the odds. It's probably not that crazy. But it's still impressive and ironic, nonetheless. Wow, range up. I'm going to go back for that Emperor card. And we're gonna see about beating the next floor without taking damage. Let's see. Again, so differential equations, if we're describing functions just by their abstract properties, then it is possible to not know the full details of the ultimate function. This is risky and dumb, and I'm doing it anyway. What I mean by that is, whoa. No. Yeah, well, the run's gonna be over soon, at least. Unless I get the 0.3% chance. Let's see. So with differential equations, you might need extra information in order to completely solve some of the problems. For example, you might need initial conditions or boundary conditions or something else, some way to give you a few more properties of the function that you're trying to solve for, such that you're able to find a unique solution to the problem. Unless, of course, the problem is not asking for a unique solution, but rather a general solution. Depends on the problem. But, you know, it'll say those things explicitly. Now, differential equations show up all over the place. They are a rather fundamental part of physics because a lot of motion is determined by acceleration. There is one final chance for me to turn this around. You know what that is by now. Also, that's really disappointing. Thank you. Wait a minute. Oh. Yeah, okay. You know, I'm gonna say I don't really need that. And yeah, I'm done with this room already. Actually, I could just use my bombs to clear this room pretty quickly. I just want to pop this guy. Okay, great. Beautiful. And I'm done. The motion of objects is represented as a sum of accelerations, which are the second derivative of position, which means you don't know the position of the object, but you know its derivatives and how they might relate to other properties. For example, pressure is often described as the second derivative of space. This is new music. Well, not new, but new to this profile. Anyway, don't even get me started on PDEs, differential equations involving multiple variables all at once. But that is fundamentally how so much of the modern scientific community describes the world around us. And differential equations are not only typically described in terms of derivatives, but you typically solve them using integrals as well, which is why this whole conversation is still relevant. Anyway, this will probably be the last true, pure math topic for a while. So look forward to something not math next time. The blue womb. Yes! That will do it for today. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you've learned something or maybe been refreshed refreshed concerning, deep repressed memories of high school calculus that you've tried your best to forget. And that's really what I'm here for, Anyway, thank you so much for watching or listening, or watching and listening. I will see you again tomorrow. Take care.